The story begins with light, not the light of the sun nor the fire of torches, but glow that seemed to rise from the very walls themselves. Imagine standing in a room where amber covered every surface, polished until it shone like liquid fire. The panels glimmered, the mosaics shimmered, and the golden warmth seemed alive, as if the walls themselves were breathing. This was no ordinary chamber. To step inside was to step into a vision, a world that felt more dream than reality. People called it the eighth wonder of the world. Its beauty left kings speechless and queens trembling. But while it dazzled the eyes, a whisper lingered in the air, a whisper that warned whoever dared to claim this treasure would never die in peace. The Amber Room was more than decoration. It was more than wealth. It was a place that carried a secret weight. Visitors said the glow was too perfect, too intense, as if it were hiding something beneath its beauty. The amber was not still. In certain lights, the golden panels appeared to ripple like waves, stand too long inside, and one began to feel watched, as though the glow itself held eyes. No one could forget their first sight of it. The walls held 6 tons of amber, carved into panels and set with mirrors and gemstones. Every inch was crafted to overwhelm the human heart. The chandeliers above scattered light that bent across the amber until the chamber appeared endless. The glow wrapped itself around all who entered, making them feel as though they had been drawn into the heart of fire, a fire they could never leave. It is said that those who walked inside felt 2 things at once: awe and fear, for beauty can be dangerous. Beauty can hide a curse. Whispers spread across palaces and courts. Servants would not enter the chamber alone. Guards refused to stand within its walls after dark. They spoke of strange sounds, of faint cracks in the amber that seemed to shift overnight, of reflections that did not belong to anyone present. One told of shadows moving across the panels. Even when the room was still, another swore that the glow pulsed in rhythm with his own heartbeat, until he felt the chamber was trying to take his breath. But no matter the rumors, rulers craved it. The Amber Room became a prize above all others, a symbol of impossible wealth. It was said that the power of the room was greater than any jewel, greater even than a crown. Yet those who owned it never rested easy. The chamber carried a weight, a shadow that never left its keepers. Tsars, queens, generals, and invaders all desired the room. Some built wars around it. Some made alliances because of it. But look into their lives, and a pattern begins to form. Glory followed them quickly, but so did ruin. The Amber Room did not stay still. It traveled. It was gifted. It was stolen. And each time, blood followed its trail. How could something so radiant bring so much darkness? How could walls that glow with golden fire carry the smell of death? Perhaps the secret lies in the amber itself. Amber is not stone. It is a hardened resin of trees, trapped for millions of years. Within it, insects remain sealed, wings spread as if frozen in flight. Tiny worlds are imprisoned in its depths. The Amber Room was built not only from beauty, but from time itself. Every panel carried ages upon ages, locked away, silent and waiting. What if the glow of the Amber Room was not simply the reflection of light, but the memory of all that time? What if every soul who gazed upon it stood before something that remembered far more than they could ever imagine? Some whispered that the amber was alive, that it remembered the forest it once came from, that the room breathed because the resin never truly died. Perhaps that is why visitors felt watched. Perhaps that is why rulers never found peace. The room was not just a chamber. It was a presence. There are tales of men who dreamed of the room for nights after stepping inside. Dreams where the golden walls closed in. Dreams where the mosaics melted and the amber sealed them within, trapping them forever like the insects inside its depths. They woke gasping, convinced that if they had not opened their eyes, they would never wake again. Yet still, the desire to possess it burned brighter than fear. Power blinds the cautious. Kings believed it would make them immortal. Queens believed it would make their reign eternal. But history shows something else. Those who came closest to the Amber Room's glow often fell fastest into ruin. The chamber whispered promises, but it also whispered threats. Wars raged around it, men died for it, and yet no one truly held it for long. Some treasures resist ownership. Some treasures devour their keepers. When fire reflects upon gold, it dazzles. But step too close and it burns. That is the paradox of the Amber Room, a wonder so great it seemed to belong to heaven itself. And yet it carried the weight of a curse so heavy that even the mightiest rulers trembled in its glow. The first time it was unveiled, nobles gasped. They stood silent, unable to move as though spellbound. But among the gasps there was also unease, for the chamber seemed less like a gift and more like a warning, like a golden trap, beautiful enough to hide the danger beneath. Generals who guarded it never grew old. Their lives ended in sudden falls, strange illnesses, or quiet assassinations. Advisors who entered it too often became obsessed, their minds crumbling, their dreams plagued by visions of amber seas swallowing entire worlds. The chamber fed on admiration and then fed on fear. It was not simply a creation of men. It felt older, deeper, as though something beyond human hands had touched its making. Who could shape so much amber into one glowing illusion without leaving behind a shadow of their power? And so the question lingers, a question that haunts every telling of its story. How could something so radiant bring only ruin? The Amber Room dazzled the eyes, but it tested the soul. Those who stood within it often left with trembling hands. They smiled in front of others, but their voices shook when they spoke of what they had seen. Some said the room whispered to them. Some said the light followed them even after they left, searing itself into their vision. One nobleman claimed that when he shut his eyes, he still saw the glow burning behind his eyelids. He died weeks later, his last words lost in a breathless whisper. Beauty has many faces. The Amber Room's beauty was a mask. Behind it, something darker breathed. Perhaps it was a curse of greed. Perhaps it was a curse of time. Or perhaps the Amber Room itself held a will, waiting silently to claim those who adored it too much. It stood as both a wonder and a warning, a golden illusion that promised eternity, but left only silence. And that is where the story of the Amber Room begins, with a glow that could blind, a beauty that could not be denied, and a curse that waits for anyone who dares to claim it. The year was 1716, and the Empire of Russia was rising under a man who believed destiny itself had chosen him. His name was Peter, known to history as Peter the Great. Tall, commanding, restless in vision, he wanted to turn Russia into a power that no one in Europe could ignore. He built cities, expanded armies, and forced open the gates of the future with his will. Yet in the midst of his grand designs, a gift arrived. A gift so dazzling that even Peter, a man hardened by war and politics, found himself entranced. It came from Frederick William I of Prussia, who sent to Russia an extraordinary treasure, a room built entirely of amber, not a chest of gold, not a jewel-encrusted crown, but a chamber whose very walls glowed like fire. The Amber Room. When the crates were opened and the panels revealed, silence fell across the Russian court. Even the hardest generals stopped breathing for a moment. The golden panels shimmered like living flame. Mirrors multiplied the glow until the chamber seemed endless, as though one could step into it and never find the edge. It was not simply a gift. It was a vision to the world. It was presented as an alliance sealed in beauty, a gesture of friendship between Prussia and Russia. But whispers filled the court almost immediately. Some said it was no gift at all, but a poisoned chalice. For why would a ruler give away a treasure so great? What bargain had truly been struck? What hidden cost lay within the walls of amber? Peter accepted the gift with pride, and yet even he felt the weight of its presence. He had faced battles, conspiracies, assassins, and storms, but never before had he felt such unease from something that could not raise a sword. The Amber Room was silent, yet it carried a presence that pressed upon the chest, a reminder that beauty can be heavier than steel. The room was installed within the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg. It became the jewel of the empire, a chamber of light where dignitaries and allies were dazzled into silence. But as the golden glow spread across the palace walls, so too did the rumors. Every man who entered felt something. Some described all that made them weep. Others described unease, the sensation of being watched. One noble said the light never left his eyes, even after he stepped out into the cold night. Another muttered that the room had taken something from him, though he could not say what. In the years that followed, a strange pattern began to unfold. Every man who claimed ownership of the Amber Room rose swiftly in power, influence, wealth, and prestige seemed to bloom around them. But the rise was always followed by a fall. Sudden deaths, mysterious accidents, illnesses without explanation. It was as though the room granted power only to demand payment in return. Court whispers grew louder. Was it politics that claimed these lives? Or was it something far older, something that lived within the amber itself? The amber was ancient, drawn from forests long before human memory. Each piece held insects, leaves, tiny worlds trapped in golden resin. Within the panels were lives frozen in time. Creatures who had struggled once but could never escape. Perhaps that was a curse, a chamber made of imprisonment, spreading its silence into the souls of men. Peter himself often gazed upon the chamber with a restless eye. He loved its beauty, but he never fully trusted it. His reign was vast, his power great, but even he could not escape the weight of destiny. He died suddenly in 1725, at only 52 years old, his body weakened by illness. Some claimed it was natural. Others whispered the Amber Room had already claimed its first Russian czar. After Peter's death, the treasure passed his heirs. Catherine I, then Elizabeth, and later Catherine the Great. Each stood within its golden glow. Each felt the same awe. Each carried the same unease. For no matter the ruler, no matter the time, the Amber Room remained unchanged. Its glow did not fade. Its beauty did not weaken. Only those who stood within it grew frail. Elizabeth, daughter of Peter, adored the room. She expanded it, hiring craftsmen to restore and enlarge its glory. Yet her reign, though filled with triumph, ended with her body consumed by illness, her once powerful voice reduced to a whisper. Catherine the Great too admired the chamber, calling it a wonder beyond wonders. But she too faced paranoia, betrayals, and endless unrest. Was it politics? Was it human greed? Or was the chamber feeding, silent and unseen, on those who dared to love it too much? By the late 18th century, the Amber Room had become both a jewel and a shadow within Russian history. Diplomats wrote of its splendor with trembling hands, as though words could not contain it. Soldiers spoke of its glow in hushed voices, refusing to enter at night. One foreign envoy claimed that while he stood inside, he felt as if 1,000 unseen eyes were watching from within the amber panels, studying him, weighing him, deciding his fate. He left Russia soon after and never returned. The detective mind would ask, was this simply coincidence? Were these deaths and misfortunes merely the natural course of power and politics? Or was something else entwined with the fate of the Amber Room? Something beyond logic, beyond reason? Historians note that rulers rose and fell for countless reasons. Illness, betrayal, war, assassination. Yet the Amber Room seems always to stand at the center of these storms, glowing quietly while lives shattered around it. There are records of servants refusing to clean the chamber alone. They claimed they heard faint voices when the room was empty. Some swore the reflections in the mirrors did not match their movements. One maid fainted, saying she saw herself trapped behind the amber panels, staring back in silent terror. She left service the next day and vanished from history. Even the craftsmen who worked on restoring the chamber often met grim ends. One fell from scaffolding and died instantly. Another burned in a fire weeks after his work was done. A third vanished on a road outside St. Petersburg, his body never found. For those who labored to shape the chamber, the curse was no less merciless. As the decades passed, the Amber Room became both a symbol of Russia's glory and a whisper of its curse. It was a diplomatic jewel, shown to foreign guests with pride. Yet behind the smiles and ceremonies, even the rulers themselves feared its shadow. They showed it, but they did not trust it. By the dawn of the 19th century, the room's legend was firmly sealed. It was a treasure of beauty, yet a chamber of death. It elevated men quickly, then tore them down with equal speed. The pattern was too strong to ignore. Every hand that reached for its glow seemed destined to tremble. Every ruler who admired it too long seemed destined to fall. Still, the allure remained irresistible. Human nature is bound to desire what it cannot fully understand. Power draws the ambitious, even if power comes with a price. And so the Amber Room remained, glowing like a golden illusion, waiting in silence for the next hand to claim it. Looking back, one cannot help but ask, Was Frederick Williams' gift to Peter truly one of friendship? Or had he sent to Russia something he himself feared? Did he know the treasure carried a curse? Did he seek to pass it on, to unburden himself of the weight? If so, then the imperial gift was not a blessing, but a trap. For every ruler who stood within the Amber Room found themselves caught between awe and dread. They could not resist its beauty, yet none could escape its shadow. And so, in the heart of Russia, within walls meant to dazzle the world, the Amber Room stood, a wonder that gave power and a curse that promised ruin, a treasure that lit the halls of emperors, but left behind only silence in the hearts of those who claimed it. The golden panels glowed as if alive, and with each passing year, the chamber whispered the same unchanging truth. Beauty can grant power, but always demand a price. War has a way of swallowing beauty. It does not matter if the treasure is carved in marble, painted on canvas, or glowing in amber. When the cannons roar and armies march, even wonders of the world become trophies and sometimes graves. The year was 1941. The world was burning. Hitler's forces surged across Europe, leaving behind fire, fear, and silence. Russia was now under threat, and the city of Leningrad, once filled with art, music, and dreams, became a battlefield. Hidden within its palaces stood the Amber Room, glowing quietly as it had for centuries, waiting for fate to choose its path once again. The Nazis knew of it. They had read of it in books, whispered of it in meetings, and dreamed of it in shadows. To them, the Amber Room was more than art. It was a symbol, a prize that would prove their dominance. Hitler himself was said to be fascinated by it, calling it a German treasure that had been stolen by Russia. To take it back was not simply theft. It was conquest. As the German forces advanced, curators at the Catherine Palace tried desperately to protect the chamber. They attempted to remove the amber panels, to crate them and hide them deep within Russia's vast lands. But time was short. The amber was brittle, fragile from age. The panels began to crack under hurried hands. Fearing they would destroy the very treasure they sought to save, the Russians covered the room instead, disguising it with wallpaper and thin boards. To the untrained eye, it appeared as an ordinary chamber. But the Germans knew. In 1941, when Nazi troops entered the palace, they found the Amber Room almost instantly. Witnesses later recalled that the soldiers who stepped inside fell silent. Some trembled, staring at the golden glow with unease. These were men hardened by war, men who had seen death, yet their hands shook as they touched the panels. Perhaps it was greed, perhaps it was fear, or perhaps the old curse stirred awake as their boots crossed the chamber floor. The dismantling began. Soldiers were ordered to strip the panels from the walls. They worked quickly, but not without strange incidents. One soldier screamed suddenly, swearing their reflection in the amber did not match his own face. Another collapsed, struck by a seizure he had never suffered before. A third vanished days later, his body never found. Were these simply accidents in the chaos of war? Or did the chamber already begin to feed on those who dared disturb it? The amber was packed into crates. Witnesses said the soldiers moved as if weighed down by more than wood and resin. Their shoulders sagged. Their breaths grew heavy. Some muttered that the crates groaned, as though alive. By the time the crates were loaded onto trucks, several men were ill, their skin pale, their eyes hollow. Some never recovered. From the palace, the Amber Room was taken to Königsberg, a city in East Prussia. There, it was reassembled inside a museum, displayed as a trophy of victory. German officers walked its halls with pride. But even in their triumph, unease followed. Guards stationed near the chamber reported whispers in the night, faint and impossible to trace. Visitors sometimes refused to stay long, claiming the light made them dizzy, their heads filled with a hum like distant thunder. And then, the deaths continued. A high-ranking officer who oversaw the transport of the Amber Room was killed in a car crash weeks later. Another, who boasted that the treasure would make him immortal in Hitler's court, was shot on the front lines within days. Even those who merely touched the panels seemed cursed to fall. The question arose, was this guilt? Soldiers and officers stealing a wonder of the world, knowing in their hearts they had desecrated something sacred? Or was the treasure itself alive, feeding on the lives of those who sought to claim it? In times of war, coincidence and curse can look the same. But the Amber Room's pattern was too sharp to ignore. Wherever it went, ruin followed. The museum in Königsberg displayed the room for only a short time. Then the war shifted again. Bombings, fires, and chaos consumed the city. In 1944, Allied forces bombed Königsberg heavily. Flames swallowed streets. Smoke choked the air, and whole neighborhoods collapsed. In the inferno, the Amber Room vanished. Some said it burned, reduced to ash by fire. But amber does not burn easily. It smolders, it resists, and no proof was ever found of its destruction. Others whisper it was hidden before the bombs fell, locked in underground bunkers, sealed within tunnels, or loaded onto ships that sank beneath the Baltic Sea. But one truth remained. Many who searched for it after the war met the same fate as those who touched it during the war. Sudden accidents, strange deaths, vanishings that left only silence. Perhaps the most chilling detail came from survivors who had helped tack or guard the crates. Some swore that the amber panels did not seem like lifeless decoration. They pulsed faintly in the dark, glowing as if alive. One man described it as carrying not wood, but flesh. Another claimed the crates seemed to whisper when no one spoke. Both men died within months, one of illness, the other drowned under unclear circumstances. Psychologists have argued that these were symptoms of guilt and trauma. Soldiers, weighed by the horrors of war, attached their nightmares to the treasure they stole. But others point to the endless patterns stretching back through history. The Amber Room gave glory, then brought ruin. The Nazis were no exception. What is more chilling is this. Records from the war are incomplete. Some documents suggest the crates were last seen in a castle storage vault. Others suggest they were moved to the port, ready to be shipped. But every trail ends in silence. Every witness contradicts another. Files vanish. Reports burn, as if the treasure itself was erasing its own tracks, consuming not only lives, but history itself. What is certain is that the soldiers who dismantled the Amber Room, the officers who transported it, and the men who guarded it, almost none escaped tragedy. Even today, when historians study the fate of the Amber Room, they find themselves staring into a fog, a detective's puzzle with missing pieces, where every lead seems to end in death. Some researchers who grew obsessed with finding it in the decades after the war also died strangely, one in a car accident eerily similar to the officer who once boasted of its immortality, another in a plane crash, a third in a sudden fire. The curse, it seems, did not end with the war. But during those war years, the chamber's glow shone one last time in Königsberg, though only for a select few. Imagine the sight. German officers standing proud before walls of amber, a room glowing defiance of the bombs that thundered outside. They thought themselves victorious, thought they had claimed the wonder forever. Yet within years, the city itself would be consumed by fire, and their empire would crumble into dust. The Amber Room had once been a gift between rulers. Now it had become a prize of conquest. But conquest is always temporary. The room had endured centuries, outlasting tsars and queens. It would outlast soldiers too, and so it vanished into the shadows of war. Whether it was hidden, destroyed, or claimed by forces beyond human reach, no one can say with certainty. But those who touched it left behind a trail of trembling hands, pale faces, and untimely deaths. Perhaps it was guilt, perhaps it was coincidence, or perhaps the chamber was already feeding, as it always had, on the lives of those who sought to claim it. The Amber Room does not give freely. It takes, and in the darkness of war, it seemed to take more than ever before. In the final years of the war, as bombs tore through Europe and cities crumbled into dust, one story began to travel through the smoke-filled air, a story of a train. Not just any train, but one carrying a treasure that could blind the eyes of kings, silence the voices of scholars, and draw death to all who touched it. That train, they said, carried the Amber Room. The room had been dismantled, packed into crates, and hidden in Königsberg. But as the tides of war turned against the German army, orders came to move the treasure further west. The Allies were advancing, and the Soviets were closing in. Hitler's empire was shrinking by the day. The Amber Room, with its glow of ancient fire, could not be left behind to fall into enemy hands. So the crates were loaded. Soldiers, weary and hollow-eyed, lifted the heavy boxes onto rail cars. Witnesses swore they moved with dread, their hands trembling as if the amber itself resisted being touched. The train stood waiting, its black iron body gleaming faintly under the pale winter sky. Steam hissed, wheels groaned, and a long whistle split the night. Then it departed. Villages along the track recalled the thunder of its passage. Windows rattled as it roared through the dark. Dogs barked wildly. Old men swore the sound lingered long after the train had gone. But when dawn came and investigators searched, no trace of the train could be found. The rails ended in silence. The train that carried the Amber Room never arrived at its destination. Some said it was swallowed by the earth itself, that deep beneath the forests and mountains of Germany, a cave-in or bombing buried the train forever. Others swore it was stolen, hijacked by forces unknown, perhaps deserters, perhaps secret agents, perhaps men who had already fallen under the curse of the chamber's glow. But the strangest stories came from the villagers. Entire towns along the supposed route claimed they heard it, not just one or two witnesses, but dozens, men and women who woke in the night to the sound of wheels grinding against iron, of whistles shrieking through the fog. They rushed to their windows, but saw nothing. No lights, no smoke, only the echo of something that should have been there, yet wasn't. It was as if the train existed only in sound, a ghostly thunder rolling across the earth. And then it was gone. The disappearance of the Amber Room's train became one of the great mysteries of the war. Files were scattered, documents lost, and witnesses silenced by death or fear. No station ever reported receiving it. No soldier ever confirmed its arrival. The crates, the panels, the wonder itself, all vanished into the fog of history. Detective, historians, and treasure hunters tried to solve the puzzle. Some claimed the train had been hidden in underground tunnels carved by the Nazis, secret passageways dug beneath mountains to house their stolen treasures. Others believed the train sank, loaded onto a ferry across the Baltic Sea, and claimed by the waves. But for many, the story held a darker possibility, that the train itself had been claimed, not by sea or earth, but by the curse of the Amber Room. Think of it, a treasure that had consumed rulers, soldiers, generals, and kings. A treasure that had already left a trail of deaths across centuries. Would it not also consume the very machine that carried it? Some whispered that the glow of the amber bled to the crates, seeping into the iron and steam. That the train itself became infected, no longer a vessel of man, but a vessel of the curse. The train's crew was never seen again. No letters, no records, no bodies. It was as though the men who drove it, stoked its fire, and guarded its cargo had been erased from time. Did they fall under the tracks? Were they silenced by their own comrades? Or were they sealed forever with the amber they carried? One tale, whispered by villagers years after the war, told of a night when the train passed through their valley. A boy swore he saw faces press against the windows. Not the faces of soldiers, but pale, hollow-eyed figures bathed in golden light. They looked at him, but their mouths did not move. When he blinked, the train was gone, leaving only silence. He told the story for years, and though many dismissed it, his voice always trembled when he spoke. Could it be that the Amber Room had turned the train into its own prison? That those who touched it became part of its glow, trapped forever like the insects inside its panels? Treasure hunters searched tirelessly in the years that followed. Some dug deep into forests, convinced the train was buried. Others searched the coast, convinced it sank. A few claimed to find traces, a map marked with symbols, a tunnel sealed with concrete, a rusted rail line leading into darkness. But none ever produced the crates. None ever brought back the amber. And many of those who searched met grim ends. A plane crash here, a car accident there, a sudden illness that took life within days. The curse seemed to reach even beyond the war, claiming those who dare to chase its trail. What makes a story more chilling is that trains do not simply vanish. A train is iron weight, smoke, and fire. It leaves tracks, it leaves records, it leaves witnesses. Yet in this case, the train carrying the Amber Room left nothing. Only echoes, only whispers, only a story too strange to explain. Some researchers believe the story of the missing train is a myth born from chaos and fear. But others point to the sheer number of witnesses who swore they heard it, entire villages miles apart, all claiming the same thunder in the same night. They could not all have imagined it. If the train never arrived, and if no wreckage was ever found, then where did it go? Was it swallowed by the collapsing earth? Was it hidden by hands that never spoke again? Or did the Amber Room claim it, folding the train and its men into the same mystery that has followed the treasure for centuries? The truth may never be known, but one thing is certain. The Amber Room did not simply vanish in silence. It vanished with thunder, thunder that shook the windows of sleeping villagers, thunder that echoed across fields and forests, though no train could be seen, thunder that faded into the night, leaving only questions that have never been answered. And so the story of the train that never arrived became legend. Some call it history, others call it myth. But in every telling, the same unease lingers. For how can iron and fire vanish without a trace? How can hundreds of tons of steel dissolve into silence? Unless, of course, it was never meant to be found. The Amber Room was never a treasure to be owned. It was a force, a curse, a presence that consumed all who touched it. Perhaps the train was only another victim, another offering to its endless hunger. To this day, explorers still search. They dig tunnels, scan with machines, dive into seas. They swear they will find it. They swear the Amber Room lies waiting, sealed within a forgotten carriage in some buried rail line. But each search only adds to the silence. Each attempt seems to end with accidents, deaths, or vanishing clues. The train story remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the war. A machine that roared into the night, carrying a wonder of the world, and then was gone. Gone without fire, gone without wreckage, gone without a trace. The Amber Room glowed once more in its crates, and then it vanished, taking a train, a crew, and the hopes of nations with it. Whether it lies buried beneath the earth, drowned in the sea, or claimed by shadows, only the silence knows, and the silence does not speak. Some treasures leave behind gold. Some leave behind legends. The Amber Room left behind survivors, but their silence spoke louder than any words. Those who touched the treasure, those who carried it, those who searched for it. Many never lived long enough to tell their stories, but a few did, and their lives became strange shadows of what they once had been. They were called survivors, yet what they carried was not survival. It was a mark, a weight, a curse that did not end when the panels vanished into war. Soldiers who dismantled the Amber Room in 1941 were among the first. At first, they laughed and boasted. They told each other they had carried history, that their names would be remembered. But soon after, their fates turned dark. One was found dead on a roadside, struck down in an accident that left no witnesses. Another wasted away with fever, his body burning without reason, doctors helpless to save him. A third disappeared during the retreat. His uniform later found near a riverbank, but no body ever surfaced. The few who survived the war spoke little. When asked, their voices dropped low. Their eyes grew hollow. One soldier, decades later, admitted in a trembling voice that he often dreamed of golden walls pressing around him. He would wake gasping, drenched in sweat, unable to breathe. "The room is still with me," he said quietly. Days later, he died of a sudden heart attack. But it was not only soldiers. Investigators who hunted the Amber Room after the war often met the same strange ends. Some were passionate men who devoted years to the search. They studied maps, interviewed witnesses, crawled into collapsed tunnels, and dived into icy waters. Yet many never lived to publish their findings. There was a German historian who announced he had found proof that the room was hidden beneath castle ruins. Before he could reveal the exact location, he was killed in a car crash on an empty road. His notes were lost in the fire. Another man, a Polish treasure hunter, claimed he'd found the entrance to a sealed bunker. He told friends he had seen crates marked with the Nazi eagle. He died that same week in an explosion. The bunker collapsed before anyone else could reach it. Then there was a Russian investigator who declared boldly that the Amber Room had been hidden in the Baltic Sea. He organized dives, funded expeditions, and swore he was close. but he drowned during one of his own dives. His body trapped beneath wreckage while his team watched helplessly. It became a pattern so clear that even the bravest grew afraid. Each time someone came close, their life was cut short. But what about those who survived? They did not escape unscarred. Survivors spoke of nightmares, dreams filled with golden light that would not fade. They saw panels glowing in the darkness, reflections that smiled when they did not. Some awoke screaming, convinced they were trapped inside the amber itself. Others whispered of voices, faint, murmuring voices that seemed to rise from the golden resin, voices calling them by name. One treasure hunter confessed to his wife that he could no longer enter his own study. On the walls were maps, drawings, and photographs of the amber room. But every time he stepped inside, he swore the images moved. The golden panels shifted. The room grew smaller. He said he felt watched by something just beyond the paper. He burned the documents one night and never searched again. But even then, he lived in fear, refusing to speak of what he had seen. It was as though the curse was not tied only to the treasure itself. It seemed to cling to the memory, to the thought, to the very act of searching. Psychologists tried to explain it. They said it was guilt, trauma, men who had stolen, men who had killed, men who could not bear the weight of what they had done. Others said it was obsession, a madness that grew from chasing an impossible dream. But the survivors knew better. The survivors did not call it guilt. They called it a presence. They said the amber room followed them. One old man, who had once guarded the crates, told his grandson that he could still hear the sound of wheels rolling across the earth, the ghost of the train that had carried it. He said the sound followed him wherever he went, soft at first, then louder. It grew louder as he neared death. On his final night, he whispered, "It is coming," and then fell silent forever. The story spread. People began to believe that to even speak too much of the amber room was dangerous. Some researchers refused to publish their work, leaving papers locked in drawers. Others left warnings in their notes, telling future seekers to abandon the hunt. And yet, the search continued. Because human nature is bound by desire, people want answers. They want truth. They want the treasure that promises glory, but they forget the price. Those who survived long enough to tell their stories carried a different kind of death, a psychological death, a slow unraveling of the mind. They were haunted by visions no one else could see, whispers no one else could hear. They withdrew into silence, unable to explain. Some lost families, some lost sanity. They were alive, but the glow of amber burned behind their eyes. Even today, there are modern survivors, men and women who have searched with technology, sonar, and satellites. They find anomalies underground, strange shapes beneath lakes, patterns in ruins. They announce their discoveries with excitement, and yet, time and again, they vanish into silence. Projects collapse, expeditions fail, funds disappear, lives end too soon. The curse seems to reach even across decades, feeding not only on those who touch the treasure, but on those who dare to chase its shadow. This is the horror of the amber room. It is not only a curse of touch, but of thought. To remember it is to risk it. To seek it is to invite it. Even to speak of it may be to call it closer. Imagine a treasure so powerful that it does not need to be found to destroy you. Imagine a curse that clings not to gold, but to memory. That is what the survivors tell us. They lived, but they carried the weight of silence. They became warnings in human form, reminders that some things are not meant to be pursued. The amber room is more than a lost wonder. It is more than a stolen chamber. It is a mirror that reflects not just beauty, but the weakness of human desire. And those who survived it learned this truth the hardest way of all. They became shadows of themselves. Silent, trembling, haunted shadows. Their survival was not triumph. It was punishment. Perhaps that is why the treasure has never been found. Not because it is hidden too well. Not because the earth swallowed it whole. But because it does not wish to be found. And in its silence, it leaves behind survivors who cannot speak, who cannot rest, who cannot escape. The amber room devours, but sometimes it lets a few live, not as men and women they once were, but as living reminders of what it can do. Silent survivors who carry the curse not in their hands, but in their minds. Survivors who tell us the most chilling truth of all. The curse does not end with the treasure. It begins the moment you remember it. When war ends, ruins remain. Cities fall quiet. Yet beneath their ashes, secrets linger. After the amber room vanished, whispers began to circle. Whispers of bunkers, tunnels, and vaults dug deep beneath the earth by the Nazis in their final, desperate years. They said the amber room was hidden there, sealed away in darkness, waiting like a beast in its lair. Germany was a land scarred by bombings, forests blackened, and mountains carved with tunnels. Hitler's engineers had built vast underground networks to shield weapons, art, and treasures from the advancing Allies. Some of these bunkers were simple storage halls. Others were more like labyrinths, stretching for miles, reinforced with stone and steel. Many were forgotten as the war collapsed. Some were sealed and abandoned, their entrances hidden by rubble and overgrowth. And in these abandoned places, the whispers placed the amber room. Explorers came, historians, treasure hunters, soldiers, and later, curious adventurers. They went down into the dark with flashlights and ropes, searching for the missing glow of amber panels. Some never returned. Others came back shaken, refusing to speak of what they had seen. The survivors told strange stories. They spoke of walls wet with condensation, dripping as though the earth itself was sweating. Their footsteps echoed strangely, repeating too many times, as though someone else was following behind. In the silence, faint whispers seemed to rise from the stone. At times, they swore the air shimmered, and in that shimmer, they thought they saw gold. Not just a reflection, but panels glowing faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. One man, an explorer in the 1960s, entered a sealed tunnel with his team. Hours later, he stumbled out alone, his face pale, his voice broken. He muttered that the walls had closed and that lights had moved on their own. He swore he saw the panels of amber shining in the dark, but when he reached for them, they seemed to breathe. His companions were never found. Another survivor from Poland claimed he found a chamber beneath the earth where golden panels lined the walls. But the glow was strange, shifting alive. He said he touched one, and the amber rippled beneath his hand like water. Terrified, he fled. When others returned with him to the same site days later, they found only rock. No panels, no chamber, nothing. He never spoke of it again. The forbidden vaults became more than places on a map. They became stories, shadows that spread fear. Locals warned each other to stay away. Farmers said their animals refused to graze near certain hills. Hikers claimed they heard the echo of trains beneath their feet, long after the rails had vanished. And always, the amber room was at the center of the whispers. Some believed it was sealed in a bunker beneath the or mountains, hidden with other stolen treasures. Others believed it lay beneath castles in East Prussia, walled off by collapsing tunnels. There were even tales of a vault beneath the Baltic Sea, an underwater tomb where the treasure rested in silence. But each search carried risk. Each vault that was open carried tragedy. In 1987, a group of explorers entered an old Nazi bunker near Dresden. They believed the amber room was hidden inside. Hours passed. When they did not return, a search team followed. They found the bodies of two men at the entrance, their faces twisted in terror. The others were never found. No sign of collapse, no sign of struggle, just silence. Years later, divers searching a flooded tunnel claimed they saw something shimmering beneath the water, golden light flickering like fireflies. They swam closer, but the glow seemed to move deeper into the dark, always just out of reach. One diver never surfaced. His partner, shaken and trembling, refused to return to the water. He said the glow was not a reflection. It was watching him. It was as if the amber room was not simply hidden in these vaults, but alive within them, shifting through walls, showing itself only to those it wished to claim. The psychological toll was heavy. Survivors spoke of nightmares that began the moment they left the vaults. Dreams of endless tunnels, dripping walls, footsteps that followed. Dreams of golden chambers that closed in like cages. Some began to hear whispers even when awake, a faint hum in their ears, repeating over and over until sleep became impossible. The forbidden vaults were not simply ruins. They became traps of the mind, Was it the curse at work? Or was it the human heart unraveling under fear, darkness, and obsession? Some said the explorers lost their grip on reality because they wanted too much. They wanted glory. They wanted treasure. But others believed something deeper lived in those vaults. Something tied to the amber itself. Amber is ancient. It carries within it the past of forests, insects, and time itself. What if the amber room, locked in the earth, began to merge with the stone, the tunnels, the darkness? What if the vaults themselves became part of the curse? Reports continued through the decades. In the 1990s, a German investigator uncovered a sealed shaft in a forest. Locals told him not to open it. They said anyone who disturbed that place would be marked. He laughed at the warnings. Within weeks, he was dead from a sudden illness. The shaft was resealed. In 2004, treasure hunters used ground radar to scan beneath an old castle. The machines picked up strange anomalies, shapes that did not belong to natural stone. Excited, they began to dig. But the deeper they went, the stranger the atmosphere became. Workers claimed their tools grew hot to the touch. Some refused to go back underground after hearing voices calling their names. Funding collapsed soon after, the site abandoned. Again and again, the story repeated. A vault is found. Strange events follow. The search ends in silence. Perhaps the most chilling detail lies not in the deaths or the vanishings, but in survivors who returned. They often carry the same look, hollow eyes, trembling voices, and unease that never left them. They described golden panels that shimmered, but not like stone or jewel. They shimmered as if breathing, breathing like something alive. The forbidden vaults became more legend than history, more shadow than fact. And yet, even today, whispers remain. There are still sealed bunkers beneath forests, still tunnels beneath mountains, still vaults beneath ruined castles. Some are too dangerous to enter. Others drown in water, others lost to time. People still ask, is the amber room hidden there waiting? Or has it become something else? Something that no longer belongs to our world? Because if the survivors are to be believed, the vaults are no longer simple halls of stone. They are places where time bends, where footsteps echo twice, where golden light moves like a living thing. They are places where history itself seems to watch you, waiting for you to make a mistake. And always, the survivors return changed. They live, but they do not escape. The forbidden vaults stand as warnings in the earth. They hold silence, but within that silence, something stirs. And perhaps the amber room is still there, not resting in crates, not glowing on walls, but breathing in the dark, waiting for the next soul bold enough or foolish enough to seek it. The amber room was not only a treasure of wood and amber, it was something more, something that seemed to resist every hand that tried to claim it. And as years passed, rumors began to spread. The whispers no longer spoke only of curses or vanishings. They began to speak of guardians. Not guards of flesh and bone, but shadows. Men and women who entered tunnels, bunkers, or ruins in search of the amber room often returned with the same story. They felt watched, not in a way one feels under the eye of another person, but watched from every direction at once. Eyes in the darkness, breath on the back of the neck, hands colder than ice brushing against their shoulders. These stories grew louder with time. Survivors said they saw shapes move in the corners of their flashlights, shadows that did not match their own, a flicker on the wall that vanished the moment they turned. Sometimes they swore those shadows lingered even after the light was gone. Pale figures in the dark, waiting. Were these the spirits of soldiers who died, moving the treasure? Or were they something older? Guardians born not from men, but from the treasure itself? The detective arc of the amber room deepens here. For every clue seemed to be bait. Every lead, no matter how solid, ended in danger. It was as if someone or something wanted to draw men deeper into the dark, only to trap them. One tale comes from the 1950s. A Russian investigator followed a lead into a forest where a Nazi bunker had been buried. He and two companions dug through rubble until they found a passage. Inside, the air was thick, damp, heavy. The walls dripped as if they were sweating. Their lights flickered strangely. Then one man screamed. He said he saw another figure walking behind them, tall, faceless, silent. They fled, but only two emerged. The third was never found. His body was never recovered. The survivors refused to speak again of what they saw. Another story comes from Germany. A treasure hunter claimed he found crates hidden beneath an abandoned castle. As he moved closer, he felt a hand press firmly on his back, shoving him forward. He spun around, but no one was there. When he opened the crate, it was empty. Hours later, while leaving, he tripped and fell down stone stairs, breaking his neck. The others in his group swore the push they saw had not come from his own step, but from something behind him, something unseen. There are countless tales like these. Men in tunnels hearing boots echo that were not their own. Women in archives feeling papers move as though touched by invisible fingers. Whole teams of searchers reporting whispers in languages they did not know. The strangest part is how these experiences often mirrored one another. Different places, different years, different people, but the same details. The shadows, the cold hands, the sensation of being lured deeper into danger. It led some to wonder if the Amber Room was never truly hidden at all. Perhaps the treasure itself was creating guardians, illusions that protected it from being found. After all, amber is more than stone. It traps life within it. Insects, plants, even air millions of years old. What if it also traps memory? What if every soldier who carried it, every ruler who owned it, every victim who searched for it, was still there, trapped in some way, tied to its glow? If so, then the guardians were not strangers. They were those who had fallen to the curse, bound forever to the treasure they tried to claim. The thought is chilling. Imagine stepping into a dark vault, only to realize the figures that follow you are not ghosts of strangers, but echoes of men and women who came before you. Explorers, soldiers, thieves, all trapped, all watching, all waiting. But the guardians did not only haunt the places where the Amber Room might be. Survivors swore they followed them home. One man reported that after leaving a search in East Prussia, he saw the same shadow every night in his hallway. It never moved. It never spoke. But it stood there just at the edge of sight until the night he died. Another said he felt hands brushing his shoulders even while sitting at his desk. He moved homes, but the hands followed. He wrote in his journal that he no longer believed the Amber Room was a treasure at all. It is a living thing, he wrote, and it wants to be lost. The detective in us asks, were these hallucinations, fear made into visions, or were they something real, something alive, tied to the treasure? One cannot ignore the consistency of the reports. People who never knew each other, who never shared their stories, described the same feelings, the same shadows, the same cold touch. Too many to dismiss, too strange to ignore. Perhaps the most powerful story of the Guardians comes from a diver who searched flooded tunnels in the 1970s. He swore he saw the amber panels glowing faintly in the water, and as he swam closer, he felt a hand grip his ankle, strong, firm, pulling him down. He fought free and surfaced gasping. His partner, who stayed above, saw no one near him, yet the marks on his leg were there, red, shaped like fingers. He never dived again. If the Amber Room had guardians, then they were not like protectors of ordinary treasures. These were not men with weapons or traps of iron. These were forces beyond flesh, shadows without bodies, hands without warmth, and their purpose was not to kill outright, but to frighten, to lure, to break the mind before breaking the body. For those who returned, the Guardians never truly left. Survivors said they felt them still, years later, watching from mirrors, moving in corners, waiting in silence. They lived, but they lived with the constant sense of being hunted, and so the mystery deepened. Was it the curse that created the Guardians? Or was the Amber Room itself alive, defending itself from discovery? When amber traps an insect, it preserves it perfectly. Wings, legs, even the smallest detail remain for eternity. Perhaps the Amber Room did the same with human souls, preserved them, kept them, and when threatened, it released them as guardians, shadows that would forever stand between the treasure and those who sought it. The idea is terrifying, To imagine that every step closer to the Amber Room only adds another shadow to its ranks. Another soul bound forever to protect what can never be owned. And maybe that is why the room remains lost. Not because men failed to search hard enough. Not because time swallowed it whole. But because the guardians refused to let it be found. The Amber Room was never a gift. It was never a prize. It was a trap, waiting in silence, defended by those who once believed they could claim it. Now, their echoes guard it still, shadows in tunnels, hands in the dark, whispers in forgotten bunkers. And the survivors who escaped those guardians carry the same message in their silence. The Amber Room is not meant to be found, for every step toward it is a step into the shadows. The search for the Amber Room has never been simple. It has been a path filled with shadows, with whispers, with sudden silence. What makes it even stranger is not only the curse that seems to strike those who search for it, but the way the very clues themselves vanish. Maps burn, archives disappear, witnesses die before they can speak. It is as if the story is rewriting itself, erasing every path that might lead to the treasure. From the moment the Amber Room was lost in the chaos of war, the trail began to shift like smoke. Some claimed to have found documents, proving it was moved by train. Others swore it had been hidden in tunnels. But again and again, the records vanished. One historian in Königsberg collected papers that described the crates being moved to a castle cellar. He was preparing to publish his findings when his home caught fire. The flames consumed his collection. His family survived, but his research was gone. He died months later, whispering that he'd seen golden light in the fire. Another man, a Russian archivist, claimed he uncovered Nazi records that marked the exact location of the Amber Room. Days later, those same documents vanished from his office. The archivist himself collapsed in the street from a stroke. Though he had no history of illness, the papers were never seen again. Over the years, the pattern became undeniable. Every lead seemed cursed. Researchers who grew too close to the truth suffered sudden accidents. Cars overturned. Planes crashed. Ships sank. Even in modern times, when technology should have made the search easier, expeditions ended with explosions or cave-ins. Teams who dug into mountains to search for bunkers often found themselves buried by landslides. Divers who searched the Baltic returned shaken, claiming their equipment failed in ways no one could explain. It was not only the people who vanished, it was the evidence itself. Maps that once showed tunnels later showed nothing. Photographs faded or were lost. Files in museums went missing. Even spoken testimonies seemed to dissolve into silence. Witnesses grew forgetful. Stories contradicted each other. It was as though history itself was folding in on the treasure, erasing every line that pointed toward it. This is where the Amber Room story shifts from a tale of curse and greed into something deeper, a psychological mystery. What if the Amber Room does not simply destroy those who touch it, but rewrites the past itself? Think of it. If something wished to remain hidden, how would it survive? By erasing every attempt to reach it. By making sure no two people ever held the same truth for long. By burning maps, silencing researchers, twisting memories. Some believe this is exactly what has happened. The curse is not only death, it is disappearance. The most haunting example came in the 1990s. A German researcher named Heinz claimed to have found photographs of crates being moved into a tunnel system near the Ore Mountains. He presented them to colleagues, who confirmed they saw the same images. But when they returned days later to view them again, the photographs were gone. The negatives were missing. The archive room itself had no record that the photographs had ever existed. The colleagues who swore they saw them began to doubt their own memory. Another story tells of a Polish journalist who interviewed an old man said to be a guard on the Amber Room train. The man described in detail the night it vanished, claiming the train was diverted into a tunnel that was sealed behind it. The journalist recorded every word. But when he returned home, the tape was blank. Hours of silence. No voice, no sound. The old man was found dead the next morning. Again and again, the clues vanish. Even governments have tried. Russia, Germany, Poland, all have funded expeditions. All have ended in failure. their findings lost or inconclusive. Some accuse politics of hiding the truth. Others point to human greed. But for those who believe in the curse, the explanation is darker. The amber room itself erases a trail. Imagine a treasure that is not only hidden, but alive in memory. A treasure that resists discovery not through walls and locks, but through time itself. A treasure that can bend history, bending it away from human hands. There are those who claim that when they search the archives, they feel watched, not by men, but by something older. They describe the sensation of reaching for a file, only to feel cold dread sweep through them. Some say their hands tremble, their vision blurs, as if the very act of uncovering the truth drains them. Others speak of nightmares that begin the moment they read about the amber room. Dreams of burning paper, collapsing tunnels, or voices whispering, "Forget, forget." They wake and their notes are gone. It is not just a treasure that vanishes. It is knowledge itself. One must ask, how many clues have been erased that we no longer even know existed? How many maps were destroyed before they could be copied? How many witnesses silenced before they could speak? How many truths were erased from memory entirely? Perhaps the most frightening thought of all is this. Maybe the amber room has already been found again and again, only to erase the memory of its discovery. Maybe the treasure has been seen, touched, even opened, but the curse rewrote the story, removing the event from history, leaving behind only silence. If that is true, then humanity may be chasing not a treasure, but an illusion that ensures no matter how close we come, the path disappears beneath our feet. This is the heart of the psychological mystery. It is not only about where the amber room is. It is about whether the amber room allows us to know where it is. Researchers who chase it admit to feeling the same despair. They collect maps, files, testimonies, only to watch them dissolve in their hands. They build theories, only to have the foundations collapse. They publish papers, only to see their work ridiculed or forgotten. It is as if the amber room whispers into the very fabric of time, "You will not find me. You will not remember me. I will remain hidden." And yet, people still search, because the human heart cannot resist a mystery. It cannot resist the promise of glory. Even when the clues vanish, even when the evidence erases itself, even when survivors die with silence on their lips, still the search continues. But every search ends the same way, in death, in disappearance, in silence. The amber room remains the master of its own story. It chooses what is remembered and what is forgotten. It leaves behind fragments, a rumor here, a photograph there, a whisper in the archives, just enough to keep hope alive, just enough to draw seekers closer, but never enough to reveal itself. That is why, after so many decades, the mystery remains unsolved. Not because humans failed to search hard enough, not because the treasure is buried too deep, but because the treasure itself seemed to erase the path behind it, like a shadow that moves just as you reach for it. The amber room is more than amber, more than art, more than history. It is a living silence, a silence that devours maps, burns papers, erases words, and swallows men whole. And the survivors who try to follow the clues tell the same truth. Every path to the amber room ends the same way, not in discovery, but in disappearance. For centuries, people believed the amber room was a masterpiece of art, a dazzling chamber built from the tears of ancient trees, a treasure of beauty, power, and history. But there are those who whisper a darker idea, that the amber room was never just art, that it was something more. Amber is not stone. It is not metal. It is life, hardened and frozen in time. It holds within it the breath of ancient forests, the wings of insect that once danced in sunlight, fragments of leaves, seeds, and earth millions of years old. It is nature's memory, sealed in golden resin. Some believe that memory carries more than beauty. Some believe it carries energy. The amber room, with its vast panels and glowing walls, may have been more than decoration. It may have been a machine, a conduit, a key. This is the otherworldly theory. When the Nazis took the amber room during the war, they did not see it only as art. Hitler himself was obsessed with the occult, with legends of power hidden in relics. His men searched for the Holy Grail, for the spear of destiny, for artifacts that promise control over life, death, and fate. To such men, the Amber Room was not simply gold and light. It was a tool waiting to be unlocked. Some claim German scientists studied the panels in secret. They said the amber held electrical charges, faint pulses like static, as if alive. When light struck it, the energy changed, growing stronger. The room became not a chamber of art, but a chamber of power. There are stories never proven, but often whispered, that experiments were carried out in Königsberg while the Amber Room was rebuilt there. Generators were connected, wires laid across the panels. Some claimed the walls hummed softly, as though resonating with unseen frequencies. Witnesses spoke of golden light that grew so bright it seemed to pass through their skin, filling their bodies with heat. Others swore they saw visions when they stood inside, strange landscapes, skies that did not belong to Earth, faces of people they did not know. Was it hallucination? Or was the Amber Room opening a doorway? If amber is memory, then perhaps the room was more than memory of the past. Perhaps it was memory of time itself. Perhaps it was a key to hidden layers of reality. The Nazis may have believed so. Their obsession with secret weapons, with Wunderwaffe, went beyond tanks and planes. They wanted the supernatural. They wanted to bend forces no man could control. To them, the Amber Room was not art. It was a portal. Some researchers suggest the Nazis never intended to hide it forever. They intended to use it, to harness the energy locked inside, to turn beauty into power, art into weapon, light into doorway. But if this theory is true, what happened when they tried? There are reports of scientists who vanished during these experiments, men who walked into the chamber and never walked out, records that spoke of power surges, of instruments shattering, of men driven mad by what they saw. One story tells of a technician who stood inside the room as the lights were powered. He screamed suddenly, clutching his head, shouting of voices in his skull. When the light shut off, he collapsed, dead. His body bore no wounds, but his face was frozen in terror. Another tale speaks of a German officer who boasted that the Amber Room would make him untouchable. He locked himself inside during an experiment. The next morning, the chamber was open and it was empty. The officer was gone. The panels glowed faintly, but no trace of him remained. If the Nazis truly discovered the Amber Room was a key, then perhaps they opened something they could not control. Perhaps the treasure was not lost in fire or sea, but transformed, pulled out of this world, folded into another. Imagine a treasure so powerful it could rewrite itself, shifting beyond human reach. Imagine a chamber that was never meant to stay in one place, but to move through time and space like a living thing. This is the chilling thought behind the otherworldly theory. The Amber Room did not vanish because men failed to find it. It vanished because it no longer belongs to this world. Modern researchers who explore this idea point to the strange pattern of clues. The train that never arrived, the tunnels that collapse, the photographs that fade, the testimonies that vanish. Could it be that the Amber Room itself bends reality around it, erasing what should remain, hiding itself in layers of existence? If so, then every searcher who dreams of finding it is chasing a ghost, not a treasure buried in earth or sea, but a treasure that moves, that shifts, that exists only where it chooses. And yet, there are those who claim to have glimpsed it. A diver once swore he saw golden panels beneath dark waters, glowing faintly, as though alive. When he reached, they dissolved like mist. A researcher in Germany claimed she saw photographs shift before her eyes, the amber panels melting into shapes she did not recognize. She said it was as if the room was trying to show her something, but not of this earth. She burned the photographs soon after and refused to speak again. Perhaps the Amber Room is no longer here. Perhaps it stands elsewhere, in a place where time bends and shadows breathe. Perhaps it is guarded not by soldiers, but by the laws of reality itself. There are even those who whisper that the Amber Room was never built by men at all, that the craftsmen who carved it centuries ago did not create it, but only shaped what had already been waiting, that the amber was chosen not for beauty, but for power, that kings and rulers who admired it were pawns in a game they never understood. And if that is true, then the Nazis were not the first to try to unlock it. Perhaps every ruler who owned it felt the same hunger, the same dread. the same whisper of something just beyond comprehension. Perhaps Peter the Great, Elizabeth, and Catherine the Great all stood in its glow and sensed, without words, that they were standing before a door they could never open. Or perhaps a door that opens on its own. If the Amber Room was truly a key, then the question is not where it went. The question is what it opened. Did it lead to knowledge, to power, to eternity? Or did it lead to madness, to death, to emptiness beyond human understanding? The silence of history gives no answer. Only fragments remain. Rumors of experiments, whispers of vanishings, shadows of light too strange to describe. But the otherworldly theory lingers because it explains the one truth that cannot be denied. The Amber Room is gone, not destroyed, not hidden, gone. Gone in a way that defies explanation. Gone in a way that feels more like transformation than theft. Maybe the Nazis discovered too late what they had taken. Maybe they touched something no human hand was meant to touch. Maybe the Amber Room itself refused to be owned, and so it shifted beyond us, leaving behind only stories, silence, and fear. The Amber Room was never just decoration. It was never just beauty. It was something else, something alive, something eternal, something that may not belong to our world at all. And those who still search for it are not searching for a treasure of art. They are searching for a key to the unknown, a key that may never again be found, because it has already opened its door. The Amber Room, a treasure once called the eighth wonder of the world, a chamber of golden fire, glowing walls, and frozen time. It dazzled kings, enthralled queens, and tempted empires. It vanished in war, leaving behind not just mystery, but a trail of death, silence, and shadows. But the question lingers even now. Where is it? Some say it lies hidden in a vault beneath mountains, sealed by stone and earth. Others swear it rests at the bottom of the sea, swallowed by dark waves, guarded by silence. There are those who believe it was burned to ash in the chaos of war. And then there are the few who whisper that it was never destroyed, never lost, but transformed into something no longer this world. Every possibility has been chased. Every lead has been followed. And yet nothing. The curse endures, not just in deaths and disappearances, but in the way the story refuses to end. The Amber Room lives not in sight, but in memory. Not in walls, but in whispers. Consider this. What if the treasure was never meant to be found? Think of the centuries. Rulers who admired it. Soldiers who stole it. Hunters who searched for it. Each touched it and each paid a price. Some with their lives. Some with their sanity. Some with silence that carried until death. The room gave beauty, but always demanded something in return. A curse that does not sleep. Even now, when researchers dig, when divers ascend, when archives are opened, the pattern repeats. Accidents. Vanishings. Fires, explosions, silence. The curse does not rest with the past. It breathes still, reaching across time, warning all who dare to draw close. Maybe the Amber Room is still waiting, sealed in a dark vault. Maybe it is resting at the bottom of the Baltic, glowing softly where no eye can see. Or maybe it no longer exists in any place we can reach. But in truth, the Amber Room has already achieved what no treasure has. Immortality, not in gold, not in panels, but in legend. Every tale retold gives it life again. Every rumor strengthens its shadow. Every searcher who dares to look adds another layer to the curse. The Amber Room no longer needs to be found. It already lives forever. And yet, the haunting question remains. If beauty itself can carry such darkness, if something so radiant can destroy as easily as it inspires, what else in our world carries a secret price? The Amber Room has shown us that beauty and curse can walk hand in hand, that the brightest glow can cast the deepest shadow, and that some treasures are not meant to be owned, only feared, only remembered. Now, the story rests in your hands. You have walked through its creation. You have seen its glory, its theft, its vanishings, its shadows, its guardians, its whispers. You have heard trains that never arrived, vaults that swallowed men whole, researchers' silence, clues erased, and theories that stretch beyond this world. And still, the Amber Room remains hidden. But perhaps that is its true power, to remain just out of reach, to live forever in imagination, to remind us that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. Some are meant to haunt. The Amber Room is more than history. It is a mirror, showing us the cost of greed, the fragility of truth, and the danger of beauty too perfect to touch. And now, the curse lives in every listener. Every time the story is told, it grows. Every time the name is spoken, it stirs. It has already marked kings and soldiers, historians and hunters. Who can say where it will move next? Perhaps it is not the treasure itself that carries the curse. Perhaps it is the memory, the legend, the telling. Perhaps the true curse of the Amber Room is this: that once you hear of it, you can never forget. It lingers like a whisper in the dark. If beauty can curse, what else in our world carries a secret price? If this story has pulled you into its shadows, if you felt the weight of its mystery, then stay close to this channel. Like this story, share it with others, and subscribe so you never miss the next legend waiting in the dark. Every tale holds secrets. Every secret carries power. And every mystery waits for someone brave enough or foolish enough to listen. The Amber Room is gone, but the curse lives on.